Welcome to the Media Bolt Podcast, where we talk all things filmmaking. So whether you're shooting with an iPhone or you're filming with a big budget cinema camera, we aim to provide you with the practical knowledge to help you the next time that you press record. On today's episode, I've got a very awesome guest that I've been following a long time and is just a complete stud at what he does. A filmmaking legend here in Milwaukee, a friend of Hagrid, as we said before, and just somebody you should know if you're in the filmmaking industry. He's done a lot of great things. I got my guy, Spencer Ortega, in the building.
Damn, thank you, man. That sounded very nice, dude.
What's going on, man? Thanks for coming up.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to, finally make it on here with you guys. So
yeah, you're a busy guy, man, and just the fact that you could come down and spend some time, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's in this industry, it's either feast or famine. You'll have like month or two just like back to back to back, and then it'll be dry for a while. And right now we're in just like one of the very like busy times of year. And it's been a lot of work, a lot of stress, but like a lot of like good stress in a way. But we got like some pretty big projects done recently, so now I'm like that post shoot, like when we did like a really good shoot, and just that feeling afterwards where like you're tired, but it's like a good kind of tired.
That's what drives you to keep going, huh?
Exactly. And just like, it's just one of the best feelings that just like, just keeps you going.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, filmmaking is such an incredible journey to go on. And, everybody has their own version of that journey. Can you tell us a little bit about, how you got into it? And, the leading up to this moment now and where you're at now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm like, when I was younger, I never saw myself going into filmmaking. It always seemed like such a mystery. I had no idea what editing was. I thought, when you're watching a movie, I thought it was all filming continuous with like a lot of different cameras. I didn't know they were like cutting and stopping and resetting and like changing lighting and things. I just it was a complete mystery. I had no idea how it works. Like the first films that I shot, was editing in camera, where you're like shooting for the edit. Like we have our wide, and then we go to the next shot that's on the storyboard, we have to shoot that versus like shooting all the coverage for the wide first and whatnot. And then, so I was really big into like soccer growing up. I thought I'd either go, like the dream would be to go pro, or, if I didn't do that, probably something in like the sports world, that it's like physical therapy or something sports related. But then, freshman year of high school, it's kind of funny, but I had to get knee surgery because we were watching this awareness test in one of my classes, and there was like this moonwalking bear, and I don't know, I was just like, I really want to try moonwalking. So then I was trying like moonwalking, practicing it, like getting the hang of it, and then one of the times just like felt something like snap in my knee or whatever, and then like swelled up like a grapefruit, and I had like some cartilage broken off that was just like floating around in my kneecap. So had to get that removed, and played one more year of soccer, but my knees kept getting banged up. So I decided, I'd rather be able to walk for the rest of my life than play 2 more years of high school soccer, and got into acting, like the theater departments. And then I was like, if I want to go into acting, I should probably take some video classes just to learn how that world works behind the scenes, and fell in love with shooting and directing, and came to grips with the fact that I'm a subpar actor. So kind of just leaned into that. And we shot a lot of videos in high school. We had like bi-weekly video announcements.
Oh, nice.
And the way we did it, we'd spend like a week or two shooting it, and there'd usually be like a narrative like foundation to it. And we did parodies of like Inception, we did parodies of like the A-Team, we did parodies of Harry Potter. But we would intertwine like the announcements, the news that we needed to like intertwine in there. And sometimes it was like clever, and then sometimes it's super blunt, just like turning the camera, like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, but it was a great time. But yeah, I really just like learned a lot, and definitely kind of like missed those days, because that was before I like knew about lighting or like sound, or just running around with a camcorder.
It's like organic back then.
Yeah, it was just like, super quick and like spontaneous, and, some of my best memories for sure. And then, from there went to UW Milwaukee for film, and then graduated in 2016 and been working, freelance since.
Yeah.
So
what was your experience at UW Milwaukee like? I know I've met a grip of people that have graduated from there and went through that experience. What was that?
Yeah, and there's pros and cons to every, school and stuff. UW Milwaukee, it's got a reputation for, it's got a very, very good experimental program. There's a lot of really good experimental filmmakers that come out of there and have, won, a bunch of festivals like Ann Arbor, which is like the Sundance of independent film stuff. But the experimental stuff could kind of turn a lot of people away, or they transferred schools because some of the videos were trying to think of the some of the videos, they weren't the most exciting thing to watch, but definitely throughout the classes kind of grew an appreciation for them once you learn the backstory behind it. One of the films we watched I think it was called Fog Rising, and it was literally 15 minutes black and white film projection of fog rising. Oh, wow. Which in today's day and age, when you got all these Marvel movies and all this exciting stuff, that doesn't... It's
hard to keep the attention of the...
Yeah, it doesn't sound very exciting, but when you think the backstory and the explanation behind it, that was when film was very new, and just the ability to be able to capture a moment in time and watch it back. Yeah. To be able to capture, the fog rising and be able to watch it back, whenever you wanted, you have that moment frozen in time, that was a pretty big deal at the time, And so when I was going through some of the more experimental classes and stuff, sometimes they were hard to sit through and oftentimes I fell asleep. But I've
been there.
Yeah, but I definitely grew, an appreciation for it. And I feel some of the experimental stuff, they help you think more outside of the box. A lot of the technical stuff, you can learn, you can learn a lot of it online. You can learn so much of it, just getting on set, working with professionals. So looking back, I think it was, it's probably a good thing that in those classes we were exposing ourselves to work and to ideas that we wouldn't really have otherwise.
Gotcha.
And the other thing with UW Milwaukee is the gear isn't state of the art. Some of the film schools that you would go to, they've got the latest and greatest, really expensive cameras and really expensive lighting. Whereas UWM gear was pretty bare bones. But when you think about it, though, some of these other schools, you're paying, $30,000 to $60,000 a semester to go to school. Whereas Milwaukee, with housing and tuition, might have been, around $9,000 a semester. And then, so that's significantly less debt when you graduate. Yeah. And that gives you a lot more options to, what you can do after you graduate. You got a little more freedom. If you come out buried in debt, you kind of have to take every single job that comes your way. Right. Whereas the less that you've got a little more flexibility. Right. You can be a little more choosy. You can do a little more creative projects.
That makes sense.
And then kind of what I did through school was kind of invested in my own gear and stuff. So it's kind of the money that I saved from not going to, these really expensive schools. I was able to invest in myself and, lighting and lenses and camera and stuff, because some of the gear in the equipment room was kind of, janky and it's hit or miss whether it's going to work or not. Right. So I just want to make sure I had stuff that consistently worked. So it got some cheap LED lights, got some tungsten Fresnels on eBay. Yeah. And yeah, kind of lost my chain of thought there.
Oh, you're good though.
Yeah.
And so after leaving, film school, what were your first steps into the industry like? It's really important to have connections and get in. So how did you kind of get in, start getting paid gigs and be a full-time filmmaker?
Yeah. So, so really the most, cause all the technical stuff, you can learn online, you can learn on set. The biggest advantage of film school is connections.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of the people that I work with in school, I work with now like professionally. When I was a freshman, I tried to get on as many sets as I could when like the seniors were shooting like their senior theses and stuff, on the weekends. Like instead of going to, like, I didn't really go to any parties at all or anything. I was always trying to get on set as much as I could, and made a lot of connections, with some like the upperclassmen and stuff. And then after they graduated and like they got like connected in the industry and they were working on a lot of projects, and then when they were looking for help, they remembered, oh yeah, this Spencer guy was pretty good at like gripping and stuff, we'll bring him on. And then so that's kind of how I got
into that.
Yeah. And then essentially like each job is your application for the next job, because there'll be other people on that set that have their own things going on. And, they see that if you're doing a good job, in gripping electric or AC or whatever you're doing, they're going to remember that when they need extra help. They'll still have like your contact info from the call sheet and stuff, and they'll reach out. Yeah,
for sure. So I know like one of the things that I think is really cool and different that you have and I kind of dealt with is you've invested a lot into your gear, into your grip truck. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a huge selling point for, a DP, for, if you're going to be grip. It just gives you options and keeps you busy, I guess. So can you talk about how that kind of developed and how you decided to, basically kit out this huge truck?
Yeah. So the gear side, it's kind of it's a slippery slope, It's like I had started with these little battery powered, like newer LED panels, I was in college, and then
I feel like everybody had those.
Yeah, no, for sure. They're kind of tanks though, you could chuck them and stuff. And I was like, oh, it would be really nice to have like a really hard source, so you can shine it through the window and get cool light beams and stuff. And then found like a 650 Fresnel on eBay for a good deal, and I got that. I was like, oh, this is great. Second one would be even better. Yeah. And then, I found another one for a good deal. It's like, oh, this is great. And then it's like, oh, there's a 300 watt. It's on sale for a really good deal. I should probably get that. Then I got that. And then there were 3 1K Fresnels. So I was like, oh my God, This is too good of a deal to pass
about to
up.
upgrade now.
Bought that. And then one of my buddies who also had a grip truck, he bought these Kino Flow lights that came with these C-stands that were kind of janky, but he didn't need them. And he sold them to me for like a really low price. And then, it's kind of just like kept building from there. And like I was driving was borrowing like a vehicle from my parents and stuff and had it, filled up with gear. And then I was driving to a shoot and the vehicle just like broke down, and then, and it's like, oh, I need to find like another vehicle. Like I should probably just get like a van or like something bigger to like hold all this stuff. And then, so my dad was like helping me. We were kind of looking online, he's keeping an eye out for stuff. And then he found this, it's like a U-Haul sized, box truck, out in New Jersey. And, it was around like maybe like $9,000. And, the time, especially, for me, like that was like a lot of, that was a lot of money. But like my parents are super great. So essentially like, they offered, so essentially like took a loan out from my parents, and they bought the truck and then, paid it off over like 2 years. But it was nice, I'm super thankful for them for, supporting me and stuff, because it's awesome. Nice not having to like pay interest on
right.
Like the loan
bank.
And stuff. Yeah, exactly. And then, and then just that kind of, filled up with gear. It was tough at first, because I didn't have like a lot of connections and stuff was breaking down. And like we had to replace the transmission, like a year, like less than a year into it. And that was like another like $3,000. And so I had a lot of like self-doubt where it's like, okay, this is kind of just like a money pit.
Yeah.
And, and first year out of college is definitely it was super scrappy. Not gonna lie, when we were short on toilet paper, but we lived right next to UW Milwaukee. So sometimes I would just walk to campus and shit there. And it wasn't that much. It was just like a few times, we were just like short. But
that reminds me of when I was playing ball, we would take toilet paper from the clubhouse back to the house. So so we were good.
It's like, hey, they got, why pay all that tuition, right?
Exactly. That's funny, man. So we talked a little bit about your journey. I kind of want to get into the nuances of filmmaking and talk a little bit about and pick your brain about some of these things. So one of the first things I thought was pretty cool is you build your own lights. You craft. You are like kind of like a MacGyver on set. You do a lot of different things that most people just buy their aperture lights and set them up, but you go the extra mile and learn how to solder and do all these things. Can you talk about that briefly and just like why you decided to be that way?
Yeah, for sure. So kind of trying to think of where to start. Kind of went down the rabbit hole of had like an ad on Instagram for these LED strips that could do these like moving light patterns, similar to like a stereotubes, but it was LED strips. And I was like, oh, it'd be great. Could line the room with them and do all these cool like patterns and things. And then I bought them and I was disappointed to find, on camera, they were flickering, and that kind of sent me down the rabbit hole of like, how can I make these not flicker? And then kind of discovered that it comes down to like the frequency with like those LED strips. So like basically the way LED strips work, when you dim them, you're not actually dimming them. It's just turning on and off really fast. And it gives like, so it, it looks dimmer, but the LED itself isn't dimming. And so basically the higher that flicker rate is, like you're not going to get any flicker. With a lot of the store brand LEDs, they've got low frequency rates. So like those are going to flicker on camera, like when you dim them. So that's something down the rabbit hole, trying to find, the right controller that had like a super high frequency rate, so I could still like dim the LEDs and like use them on camera and stuff. And then I got that, and then someone else put me on to like Luminaire, which is like an app to control stuff wirelessly over like DMX, over ArtNet and Wi-Fi. I could try not to nerd out too much.
You could talk
all
for
the
days.
specifics. I could.
So what's the advantage of having something like that versus like, just a store bought or just getting some tubes? And
so the nice things about these ones, like once I learned how to make them, I could build them for significantly cheaper than buying like the similar kind of branded light. And, so I could make a lot of them, and it gives you a lot of flexibility, especially, if you need to move quick on set, you can, light for 360 in a way. So you're lighting, for this corner of the room, you're lighting for this corner of the room, this area, this and this area. And, rarely like you won't have all those lights on at the same time because it'll just look too flat. So a lot of times you might have 12 lights set up, but only like 3 or 4 of them will be on based on the direction that you're facing. But it's nice having those other ones preset, because then now when you have to turn to look the other direction, you just dim down the other ones,
pop them on,
bring up the other ones. It just allows you to move like so much quicker, and there's minimal like tweaking and stuff. And and just the other advantages is they're just super lightweight. They're really easy to like rig in places. And during COVID, I took like an online electrical engineering class, which sounds very impressive, but I only maybe got like 5-6 lessons deep before I started getting busy again. But like I learned enough to know how to like wire things properly so they don't explode and whatnot. So like created these ballasts for these lights so that they could run off gold mount batteries, or you could run them off AC power, and they've been super clutch. And
that's
almost
awesome.
Yeah, I use them on almost every single
now
shoot.
You got wireless lights that you can just go with.
Yeah, and they're nice because you can make them any size that you want, and it gives you just like a nice, soft, portable, easy to rig lights. Yeah.
That's sweet. That's sweet. So, you know, when you're a DP and you get a project, what's your first step to preparing for that shoot day? Like, what's your process when, a job comes through pretty much?
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, touching base with like the director and the creative and kind of like what they're looking for, and, asking if they have any like reference images, cause that'll really help me out, in terms of like, the style that like I want to go for and stuff. And a lot of times too, they're usually pretty open to ideas, so I can pitch, either like a slightly different look or like blocking and whatnot. But yeah, so much like starting out, just doing like a lot of run and gun, just like showing up, making it work. But there's only like so high level of production that you can do going that route.
Right.
And then, so like over the last, last couple recent years, been trying to, take each project to the next level, and involves just like significantly more work in like the pre-production. And so just really like location scouting is huge, like, pictures help and everything, but the location often like looks different, spatially in person, than it does on camera. It's like on the camera, especially if they had a wide angle lens, it could look like you have a lot of space, or it could look like you don't have a lot of space.
Right.
And then, but when you get there, it's like totally different.
You can get a feel for that. And then logistics and stuff, you can't really answer a lot of those questions from pictures.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really important, as much as you can, scouting, and also just having the right location in the first place is really makes a huge difference. It can only make, like if you're in a 6-foot room with white walls, you're very limited at how good you can make that look. Right. Versus like if you've got a location with like a lot of depth, like you can always shrink it. You can always like put longer lenses on and make the space like smaller. But I always like having a little more space to work with. And if you've got like windows that you can like light through, and if you got, beams and stuff in the ceiling that you can rig to, and some locations, just like the lighting that they have installed just already just like naturally looks really good. So like so much of the heavy lifting can be done in just finding the right location. I think it's really important, just location is so important, because it'll really, really help you, or it will really, really hurt you.
For sure.
And then also too, just having a good art director is really important. Like if you're, like you can have the best lighting in the world, but if like the background stuff doesn't look good or just doesn't make sense, a good art director just adds so much, to the scene, and just really lifts that production value.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're getting closer to production, and you're starting to select your grip team, your gaffers, your camera team, what is some ways that you kind of get everybody on the same page and start down that process? Because for people that don't know, this DP is pretty much, making the calls for all those departments, right? Mm-hmm. And that's coming down from the director. But in a way, you're kind of the head of those kind of departments. So how do you get everybody on the same page?
Yeah. So, sometimes like depending on the shoot, if it's a more complex shoot, you might have, do like a Teams meeting or Zoom meeting, and have, some pictures of like the location and some like lighting diagrams of, approximately where like the lights are going to be.
How do you like to do those lighting diagrams?
Yeah. Well, there's, recently, I'm trying to think, I used to use this app called Shot Designer. I'm sure a lot of people, have used. It's great for like the top downs and stuff. But recently I've really gotten into this, it's called Cinetracer, and it's pretty much a cinematography video game created by this guy, Matt Workman, who's a genius. But you can essentially, you can essentially build any set, you can build any location, and you can input lighting, and you've got cameras, and then you can like click on the camera and then like see like what the camera sees and change the focal length and whatnot. So I've been getting out of that lately, especially for like the more like complicated stuff.
Is it Unreal Engine 4?
I think it's in 5 now.
They moved it to 5.
Yeah, I think it's in 5 now.
Gotcha.
And he just released a new version, Cinetracer 2, that's going to be a lot better. It's still like, it doesn't have as much as the original Cinetracer.
Okay.
But when it gets there, it's going to be just like a lot better. But if you buy the first one, you can get the second one for free. And I think it might be vice versa. But it was super handy, especially for just did this like shoot with the Bulls recently. And we, had like 6 different locations. And then I kind of recreated those locations in this software, position the lighting, block the actors, and then put together just like a little animatic, which is kind of like a pre-visualization. Just had the cameras, doing a little bit of movements and then kind of like screen recorded and then put that into like little edits and then, sent that to our lighting team and camera team just to give them a general idea and like vibe of, what we're looking for. And of course, it'll change on the day and whatnot, but it's a good, it gives you like a good foundation.
Yeah, definitely. I've looked into Cinetracer a bunch, and I know there was like a time where there wasn't many updates. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I don't know if they're going to stay with it. So it's good to hear that they're continuing to update it and move forward. Yeah. I'm going to have to jump on that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like it took me a little while because I haven't done a lot of like computer gaming. You can plug in a controller too and do it that way. But so it took me a little while to get used to
for sure.
Feeling stuff. Once you got it, it's just like a lot of fun and you just feel like very powerful because you just like create all this stuff.
Make things.
Nothing. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about, you've already got that selected and now it's time to like decide, okay, what kind of camera package are we going to go with? What are your thoughts on that? Is it all budget based or is it a lot more, just ease of use? Like how do you decide on, okay, this is what we're going to shoot with?
For the most part, like a lot of it comes down to budget, most of the time, if you have access to like the Alexa, that's kind of like the industry standard. But they're all great. Alexa's great. The new Sony Venices are great. The Reds are great. Even the lower end budget cameras, I feel like we've come to a point where, the difference between, a $50,000 camera and a $3,000 camera is kind of negligible, especially at the end of the day when a lot of it's just ending up, on your phone.
That's such a shame, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like if I could, if I only have a certain amount of budget, instead of getting like a really expensive camera, I'd rather put that towards, getting some extra crew or getting like some more lights. But if we have infinite budget or just really high budget, then, definitely trying to get, the Alexas or the Reds. Another important thing too is you have to consider like low lights. Like if you're shooting a lot of low light stuff, some cameras are better in low light situations.
Sony Venice, right?
Yeah, Venice is amazing.
So we shoot Sony FX6 and that's its big brother, great. Right? So like I've heard that thing's like night vision low-key. Yeah,
it's Venice. Yeah, Venice is great. For the Bulls shoot, we could have gone Alexa, but we decided to go with like the Red Gemini. So rental house didn't have like a Venice. Went with the Red Gemini because that's got great low light as well. And then for our B cam, went with the A7S III for doing a lot of Ronin and rigging and stuff. So it was just great for super lightweight, easy to move around, and and I think Sony's done a really great job. I think like A7S III, FX6, they've got the same sensor. They punch well above their weight class. Just that 12,800 ISO is super clutch.
Legit, right?
Super clutch.
Shit. So then the next part is like lenses, right?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of different characteristics and people like certain things and have a different, outlook on that. Is that similar where it's like, okay, these are my go-tos, but if I have budget, I'm gonna go get some Cooks or something like that?
Yeah, I would say like I'd rather shoot on, an A7S III with expensive ass lenses than shoot on, RE with, like Rokinon, whatever it is, just like the lenses just really add so much. I feel like a lot of camera sensor technology is kind of plateaued in a way. But yeah, lenses, like should be one of the first things that your budget should go towards, is getting some good lenses. And like the Atlas silver anamorphics, those just look so good with like, because the flares match the color of like whatever light is pointed at it.
Gotcha.
There's like a lot of the lower end ones. Sometimes they just have super hard blue flares that just kind of feel cheap and unnatural. But yeah, the Atlas silvers are super nice. But if we don't have budget for the really nice stuff, I've really been digging like the lenses that I own that I'll use. Like if you don't have budget to rent, are these SLR Magic APO micro primes. APO is short for apochromatic. That means they're designed so they've got little to no chromatic aberrations, and they've got like 10 or 11 iris blades. So the bokeh is just really nice,
real
and
smooth
and buttery and
buttery bokeh.
Yeah, and I'd say they're comparable to Cooks. I'm probably a little biased, but one of my buddies did like a side by side with like the Cooks, and asked one of his friends to asked him which one he thought were the Cooks, and he picked the SLR Magic one.
Wow.
But I mean,
And those are definitely more affordable lenses that, if you want to save up for it, probably a good idea to have something as a baseline versus having to rent all the time. Yeah,
I think it's good, just have your own solid sets, so that when the budget isn't there, if it's an indie project or a passion project thing, you've got like a solid kit. But when you do have the budget, you can always rent the bigger and better stuff.
So then what are your holy grail lenses?
Holy grail. I feel like the holy grail lenses I haven't even used, like the stuff you hear about, like the Panavisions and all these other ones that just haven't had the budget to use them, but you hear all these amazing things.
Gotta take out a house loan just to...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's lenses that you can't buy that you have to, the company that makes them, you have to rent from them. Like they don't sell them for people to own,
Are those the ARRI Master Primes like that?
I'm not sure. It's one of those things where
like they don't even allow you unless you like work directly with them.
It's like one of those things where they're just so nice of lenses that it's been so out of reach that I just haven't even bothered to really like look into it too much. But I've been on set with like the Hawks. I think they're like these anamorphics that are really nice, really nice character. Another really good character lens is like the Helios. Is it 58 or 55? But they give you this really awesome like swirly bokeh, and you can get them. You can usually get them on eBay with like a Cinegear thing on it, for pretty cheap. Or if you want, there's this company Iron Glass that makes. They like rehouse them in like legit cinema housing. But that looks like a Helios.
That's it.
Looks like it.
Yeah, I got one. That was a throwback. My man Dids on the ones and twos editing right now. He sold me that. Yeah. And we bust out. We call it the Russian. We just busted out randomly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great lens. It's a little. They say it's a little radioactive, but because of like the chemicals that they like
probably
use
like
on it.
Get headaches all the time.
Yeah, probably. As long as you don't sleep next to it, you should be fine. But time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, time will tell.
I'm gonna move over a little bit.
Yeah, got me nervous. So, what is your specific lighting style? Like, if you're like, hey, this is the Spencer Ortega look, what would that look be like, and why do you like that?
Yeah, I guess I like naturalistically stylized, if that makes sense. So like, it doesn't like feel it, but it's still like looks really nice, hopefully. I think usually, like, especially if you're lighting faces, like soft light usually looks better. Usually like doing, just really big soft lights, either from like a 45 degree or, even further around, and just really let that wrap around. And then, a solid, soft-ish like backlight and stuff just to help pop them from the background.
So you're big on solid kickers or soft kickers? Yeah. I know there's like some people do the hard, they'll do the Fresnels on the backlights. I like that.
It's like, and like in general, the softer the better. But there's a time and place for everything. So there's sometimes where like the hard light just looks really good.
Yeah.
It's all about, just using, the right tool for the right job to get the right look. But in general, my sauce is, big, diffused lights. And there's, a couple different ways to do that. You could do like a book light, which is like, if this is the subject and you've got an ultra bounce here, and then in front of the ultra bounce, you have another diffusion, and then you have a light kicking into the ultra bounce back into there. It just gives you super soft. Or you could do like a double break where you have like your diffusion, another diffusion, and then your light just shooting through both of those. Or you could do a triple break. Get really crazy, do a quadruple break.
Dang. How far has it gone for you?
Man, I think on Spider-Gwen, we might have done like a triple break.
Yeah.
Maybe.
How strong was that light you were using?
It was just a 600D. But the light was like, it was pretty close, and we were probably ISO 1600 maybe.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, that usually looks good. I mean, it's all about, having the right situation. I think probably the most important thing when it comes to lighting is, because when I started out, I kind of would light the talent and then light the space, but you can kind of box yourself into a corner that way. Now I think, it's better to light the space as much as possible, so that really the only thing that you're moving around is just, the key light. So once you have your space lit and you've got like if we're in a room, we've got multiple backlights rigged up, almost like 360, kind of like how I was talking about before. So then we're shooting this way, we bring up that backlight. We've got our key here. And then, if we're shooting this way, bring that down, bring up that backlight, bring up our key over here. That's, very effective and fast way to get a good look.
Yeah, so I got to be on set with Spencer and the whole gang for Spider-Gwen, and that fight scene was essentially a whole alleyway of lights and then a huge, 40-foot negative field?
Yeah.
I mean, it was insane. So like the whole space was set up for beautiful lighting.
Yeah.
And you just turn them on and off as we were different angles.
Yeah. Yes. So that for that location is tricky because we're shooting in this alley. The look of the alley was great, but there were no practicals. And so like usually when you're filming a location, you've got like, some street lights here or there. You can motivate that. You can be like, okay, if we got a street light here, let's add our light, above it or close to it. And then so for this, we kind of had to install our own practicals in a way. And so what we ended up doing, there's this company called MakerPipe, and they make these conduit connectors for just like EMT conduit. And so I got a bunch of those, and then we had a bunch of 3/4 and 1/2-inch EMT conduit, and they had like a telescoping connector too, so we could put the half in the 3/4, like extend it if we needed to. And then so for one of the walls, we essentially made like a big pole with like a hook on it, and then we just like hooked that over like the top,
right over the edge.
And then we were able with the extender thing to extend down the 1/2-inch tube. And then we attached the light to that, so we could kind of get the height like right where we wanted it. And then on the other side, we kind of screwed in, there were like some boarded up windows, and we screwed some conduit to there, and then similar thing, had the lights like drop down. And then just that way we were able to position the lights exactly where we wanted to. And like a lot of building exteriors, especially industrial, they'll have EMT conduit anyway for their own electrical stuff. So in that way too, it also kind of like blends in.
Right. It looks like it's part of the environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was super next level, man. I was like, damn, I need to go to work. This is unbelievable.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was really cool. So deciding on your lighting, I know you kind of mentioned this, like each job, caters to certain things. So you do have to be kind of well-rounded and well-versed in what you're doing. How is that? How do you approach that? Is it just based on like what the creative team tells you about, or your director gives you? Just like, are we going to do high key, low key, or you're going to do, more, bright lights, or are we going to do soft light? Is that all based on that initial creative? Yeah,
it's pretty much based off like the references that they send me. I'll be like, okay, this is like pretty sidey, soft light, hard backlight, or like this one's like, okay, they want a little more like hard front of light. If they want it to look like, if it's on a stage and they want it to look a little more stagey, you want to hit them with, a little more hard light and stuff. That too. And then also just kind of the location. And if the location has hard lights behind them, we'll probably, hit our talent with like hard light, but usually you can get away with cheating it if you want to like soften it and stuff.
Nice.
But
yeah, so I wanted to mention, so coverage, I'm just going to talk to audience. Coverage is essentially for each scene, making sure you have all your different angles covered. You have all the different views put together so that you can have leverage in editing. So you're not just stuck to a wide shot or stuck to a medium. I wanted to ask you, what's your approach to that, and how do you decide, okay, are we going to do, 9 different angles? Are we going to do the wide, medium, tight for all of this? Or like, what's your approach to that? Is it time sensitive, or is it like get as much as you can when you can?
Yeah, I think if you have the time, I think always better to have it and not need it than need to not have it. I think it's important to have that coverage, especially if it's a difficult take and you have to stitch together, the best of each performance. It's good to have, clean angles, of each character that you could cut to for reactions or for their performance and stuff. But generally when you're shooting, you always start with the wide, because that'll kind of dictate the lighting for the rest of like the close-ups and stuff. Because if you start with the lighting on the close-up, you get it looking like really good. And then you go to the wide and it's like, oh shoot, like we can't match that because we're going to see our light there. We're going to see our light there versus starting with the wide, like your limitations. And then when you push in, you can always cheat it too. Like usually a lot of close-ups, you'll bring in like an extra diffusion or something to really, soften up and look nice. If you really pay attention during shows, like you'll really notice it a lot. Like the wides will be a little bit harder, and then they punch into close-ups.
It's like so it's not soft.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden like the key's really soft, and all of a sudden they're able to control the spill that's hitting the background. Like the background's like a little bit darker.
I've noticed a lot on Apple shows for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Once you notice it,
Yeah.
But it gives you like it makes you feel better. Like when you're shooting, it's just like okay, all these.
They call it Hollywood in it, right? Like
Hollywood is at least my understanding of it is when you're holding something. So like if you needed to add an extra diffusion, but you don't have time to put it on a stand, to ask someone to Hollywood it, and then they would just hold it. I'm not sure like the origin of why it's called that or whatever, but at least that's what I've been told.
Yeah, I might have made that up.
Yeah. No, you're good.
So what's a dream project for you? Is there something that really like you hope to get to one day, or a level, or like just have something play on a certain place? Or
yeah, I mean, I love anything that calls for fun lighting and fun, camera movement and cinematography. And Spider-Gwen checked a lot of those boxes, and that way we had a lot of really sick lighting and cool camera moves and stuff. So I think like more of that, I love, a lot of superhero stuff calls for stylistic lighting. So I really love doing those projects. So yeah, dream projects. Probably just more, I think I really want to experiment more with camera moves. I feel like, that's something that I've always been focused on lighting so much throughout my career and whatnot. I really want to take some time to think about doing some really elaborate camera moves, whether it's, the drone to someone grabbing it, then it's like handheld, and then it's droning again. That'd be really cool.
That'd be big time.
Yeah.
That'd be big time.
Yeah.
So what does your future look like in filmmaking? Where do you see yourself going with this?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. It's tough. This idea, I really love like living in Milwaukee, and like I'd like to, have Milwaukee be like my permanent like base camp, and then, travel elsewhere and stuff. But I just have this feeling that, I might have to go to like Chicago or to LA or something to keep like growing and, keep landing, bigger projects and whatnot. But yeah, I think, the dream would be, live in Milwaukee, and then just go out to LA, New York every now and then. But yeah, I mean, it'd be great. I think the dream would be to bring, the bigger stuff here, but it's tricky, just because Milwaukee is such like a small market. We've got a lot of great talent that like comes through Milwaukee, but there's just not enough work to like support everyone. So a lot of people, either move to LA or Chicago. But in order to get more work here, we need more talented people. So, it's like,
it's a double-edged sword almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's in order to sustain that workforce, we need more work. But in order to get more work, we need the bigger workforce. But yeah,
for sure. Man, I've really just enjoyed this conversation. You dove in deep on some things, and I think the audience has probably like learned a lot of different things that they can look up. And I just appreciate you, number one, taking your time to come down here, because I admire your work, admire your things, and I told you that earlier, but I just want to tell you on camera too, like you're a goat at this thing, man. And it's just cool to just sit down and chat with you, man.
Thanks, dude. Likewise, man. I love your guys' work as well, and it's great to do this. I feel like there's so much more I could have talked about. So if anyone ever has any questions, they can hit me up, on Instagram or whatever.
You never know. Maybe we can do a follow-up, man.
For sure.
Yeah. So no matter where you are watching or listening to this podcast, just give us a like, subscribe, download, whatever it is you got to do on that platform to help us continue to push this content out. But we just thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Peace.